Welcome back to Learning Canadian English, the podcast that helps you understand not just the language, but the culture of Canada. I'm your host, Avery.
And I'm Zia. It's great to be with you all for episode 12. Today, we're diving into a topic that is absolutely fundamental to understanding Canada's identity, the French language.
That's right, Zia. Specifically, we're talking about French Language Day. Now, this is an international day, but it has a particularly special resonance here in Canada. It's a day to celebrate the French language and Francophone culture.
Exactly. So, to start, French Language Day is celebrated annually on March 20th. It was established by the United Nations in 2010 to celebrate multilingualism and cultural diversity and to promote the equal use of all six of its official working languages.
Right. And March 20th wasn't just a random date. It coincides with the International Day of La Francophonie. La Francophonie refers to the global community of French-speaking peoples and nations.
It's a massive organization, and Canada is a very active member. It represents countries where French is a major language, whether officially or just culturally. So for Canada, celebrating this day is about recognizing our place in that global community.
It really is. But to understand why French is so important here, we need to go way back. We're talking centuries back to the very beginning of European settlement in what would eventually become Canada.
Let's do it. Where do we start? Jacques Cartier?
He's a great place to start. In the 1530s, French explorer Jacques Cartier sailed up the St. Lawrence River and claimed the territory for France. This laid the groundwork for what would be called New France.
Right, but the first permanent settlement came a bit later with Samuel de Champlain, who founded Quebec City in 1608. This became the heart of New France, and from there, the French language and culture began to take root in North America.
For over a century, this was a French-speaking colony. People lived, worked, and governed in French. But then, as listeners might know from history, there was a major conflict between Britain and France.
The 7 Years' War. It culminated in the Battle of the Plains of Abraham in 1759, where the British defeated the French. New France was ceded to Britain under the Treaty of Paris in 1763, and this is a critical turning point.
A huge turning point. You'd think that would be the end of the French language in Canada, right? The British are in charge now. But that's not what happened.
No, and this is what makes Canadian history so fascinating. The British enacted the Quebec Act of 1774. It was a pragmatic move to ensure the loyalty of the French-speaking Catholic population, especially with revolution brewing in the American colonies to the south.
Exactly. The Quebec Act restored French civil law and guaranteed religious freedom for Catholics. It effectively protected the French language and culture, allowing it to survive and thrive under British rule. It's a foundational moment for Canadian duality.
That duality. And if we fast forward through the next couple of centuries, this protection was formally enshrined in law with the Official Languages Act in 1969, which made English and French the two official languages of Canada at the federal level.
And that brings us to the modern day, where you can see this history play out. You can get federal government services in either language anywhere in the country. Product packaging must be in both English and French. It's part of the fabric of the nation.
Okay, so let's talk about the place that is the undeniable heartland of French in North America, the province of Quebec.
Absolutely. You can't discuss French in Canada without focusing on Quebec. It's the only province where French is the sole official language. Over 85% of Quebecers speak French, and for most, it's their mother tongue.
And the culture there is so distinct. It's not just France and North America. It has its own unique music, literature, cuisine, and a very specific dialect known as Quebecois French, or Joual in its more informal working class form.
Right, and protecting this language has been a major political and social project in Quebec for decades. This led to something called the Quiet Revolution in the 1960s, and eventually to a very important piece of legislation.
Before we get to Bill 101, maybe we should explain the Quiet Revolution a bit more. It sounds dramatic, but the quiet part is key.
Good point. It wasn't a revolution with guns and barricades. It was a rapid, profound transformation of society. Before the 1960s, Quebec was very traditional, rural, and heavily influenced by the Catholic Church, which controlled education and social services. The Quiet Revolution saw the provincial government take over these responsibilities, leading to a massive expansion of the state and the creation of a modern welfare system.
Exactly. It was about modernization and secularization. This shift also fueled a new sense of Quebec nationalism. People started to see themselves less as French Canadians and more as Quebecois. This new identity was tied to the province of Quebec itself, not just to a shared heritage. This is the political and cultural climate that led to the push for laws to protect the French language.
Good point. The Quiet Revolution wasn't a war with guns, but a war of ideas. It was a period of rapid social and political change in the 1960s. Before this, Quebec was very traditional and heavily influenced by the Catholic Church. The revolution was about modernization and secularization.
You're talking about Bill 101, right? The Charter of the French Language.
That's the one. Passed in 1977, it made French the normal and habitual language of work, instruction, communication, commerce, and business in Quebec. It's why, for example, commercial signs have to be predominantly in French.
It also affects education. Children, including those of immigrants, must attend French language public schools, with some exceptions. The goal was to ensure the long-term vitality of the French language in a continent dominated by English.
That makes sense, and it's resulted in a really unique vocabulary. If you're learning standard French from France, some Quebecois terms might surprise you.
Oh, definitely. For example, the word for a convenience store or corner store in Quebec is a dépanneur. In France, they'd probably say une supérette, or a car is often called a char, which literally means chariot.
A char, I like that. Another one is how they say boyfriend or girlfriend. In Quebec, you'll hear mon chum for a boyfriend or ma blonde for a girlfriend, regardless of her hair color.
And there are so many great expressions. If something is cool or great, you might hear someone say, c'est tiggy do, which means everything is all right, perfect. Another common one is pantoute, a contraction of pas and tout, meaning not at all. Totally. It shows how the language has evolved independently. But it's also important to remember that French isn't just in Quebec. There are vibrant Francophone communities right across the country.
That's a crucial point. Forgetting them would be a big mistake. The most prominent group outside Quebec is probably the Acadians.
Right. The Acadians are descendants of French colonists who settled in the Maritime provinces, what is now New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, in the 17th century. Their history is quite tragic, involving a mass deportation by the British called the Grand Dérangement.
It is. Despite that, their culture and language persevered. Today, New Brunswick is Canada's only officially bilingual province, recognizing the status of the Acadian population. Their dialect, Acadian French, is also distinct from Quebecois French.
And then you have Franco-Ontarians in Ontario, Franco-Manitobans in Manitoba, Francisquais in Saskatchewan. There are French-speaking communities in every single province and territory, each with its own history and identity.
That's what makes the Canadian mosaic so interesting. It's not just one English block and one French block. It's a complex web of histories and cultures. Celebrating French Language Day in Canada is about honoring all of these communities.
So, to wrap this all up, what's the main takeaway for someone learning about Canada?
I think it's that Canada is fundamentally a country built on the coexistence of English and French. It hasn't always been a smooth relationship, but the presence of the French language has shaped the country's laws, its politics, and its cultural identity in profound ways.
I agree. You can't fully understand Canada without understanding the French fact. So we encourage all our listeners to explore a bit of French Canadian culture. Listen to some Quebecois music, watch a film from Denis Villeneuve, or if you get a chance, try some poutine or a tourtière.
Definitely try the poutine. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to episode 12 of Learning Canadian English.
Join us next time when we'll be discussing the unique vocabulary of Canadian slang. You won't want to miss it, eh? Until then, take care.